we go. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay, so mean, median, and mode, we're going to talk about that in our mini lesson today. We're going to talk about some triangles. We're going to talk about Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared plus equals c squared. And I'm going to show you a really, really good shortcut with this at ACT. I mean, they love doing this shortcut. Like you'd think like they just live on it. It is probably one of the best shortcuts out there. So anyway, if you find yourself having to like refer to the formula sheet for something, I would circle that formula because that's like, you know what, that's something you had to look up and maybe you need to remember it. You know, you had to look it up once. You might want to mark it down again. But if something was there you did not have to look up, well, don't worry about it because you've already know that, right? So kind of identify to yourself things you need to know. What I would like for you to do is to go into your yellow packet for math and find the one that says descriptive statistics at the top, okay? Descriptive statistics at the top. It's a few pages in. I think it says page 14 at the bottom. But descriptive statistics. And we're going to talk about all of them. And I found a lot of ACT questions that match up. And you'll see like how they kind of start ranking up in difficulty. Okay, so the first thing, the mean, it is a fancy word for average. And on our formula sheet, we're saying, how do you do it? Add up the terms and divide by the number of terms. So, for example, this is one I made up. Suppose you have a certain group of people with 5 children, 3 of whom are ages 10 and 2, are age 10. So 3 of whom are age 10, and 2 of whom are age 5. Now, this is really confusing wording. I saw this on an ACT a while back, and I hated that this wording was like this. The question says, what is the mean age of the children? Well, we know that there's 5 children, right? Now, it says 3 of whom are age 10. So we've got a 10-year-old, 10-year-old, and another 10-year-old, right? Because there's 3 of them that are age 10. And then 2 of whom are age 5. So plus 5, plus 5. And I would key this to my calculator to get the answer, but if I add these up, I get I get 40 divided by 5, which is 8. The average age is 8. I picked this one because the wording is really weird how it's done. So sometimes on the math questions, it's almost like you have to know English, you know? So I would like for you all to answer question number 7 here. I'd like for you to read it. Take a minute and come up with the answer. Hopefully my dog barking in the background's not bothering you too much.
Oh, where is this question?
Okay, so Alex, there's a yellow packet, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Now, if you flip a few pages in, there's at the top, it says descriptive stats. Now, I do have a page number for this. It's page number 14, if you see it at the bottom. Okay.
Well, that's not a few pages.
A few is like 2 or more. It happens to be quite a few more, right?
Yeah, technicalities there.
All right. So to find the mean, I think I'm just going to add up all these ages of the presidents. And I kind of looked this up, and these are actual ages of presidents. Oops, 57, 61. Got me all confused here. 57, 58, and 57. We'll divide by 6, and we wind up with letter C, 57.8. So adding them up and dividing by the total. That's a pretty straightforward kind of question. Like, well, Mr. Flint, why are we doing this? This can't be this easy. Well, let's look at some ACT questions now, some other ones. Here's our first one. Now,
Flynn?
Yes, Alex?
I was just wondering, are we gonna be able to use are we allowed to use our calculator for these questions?
Great question. So on every single question for just the math section, you can use your calculator. It's the only section you're allowed to use it on. You can't use your calculator on the science or the English or reading, but just on the math. And it's on every question you can use it.
Cool.
I always tell people, man, use it if you can, because you're not going to make a dumb mistake, you know? Let the calculator do the heavy lifting for you. Okay, so here's a question kind of like what we just did, but it's grouped differently. Here they want to know the mean of 20 customer ratings. But notice they've grouped it like 6 customers rated a 3, 8 customers rated a 2. So I could write this down longhand. I could say 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. You know, I could add these up, but wouldn't it be faster to say there are 6 people that rated a 3, and then there were 8 people that rated a 2, and then there were 2 people that rated a 1. And just for math's sake, I'm going to say 4 people rating a 0, but I don't think you really need that, right? Because 4 times 0. So if we did this math, this would tell us how many total ratings there were, right? What there was, there's some. And I'll just divide by 20 because there were 20 ratings. Now I'd use my calculator, right? And when I type this into my calculator, I wind up with letter A. Now, I'm not going to do the question next to it, but I do want you to see that, see how this one next to it, it's very similar to the other one. It's from a different year's test, but they're both like, one was question 37, this is 39. And what I'm trying to say is the more math questions you can do, you start recognizing forms of the question and seeing how to do some of these. Like, oh, I remember this type. I got this one down. The only difference is it's using percentages instead, which would be no big deal, you know. We would have 0 times a 1 plus 0 times a 2 plus 10 times a 3 plus 70 times a 4. I'm making a mistake here. Plus 20 times a 5. Now, the only thing you have to be careful of, like if you did it this way, you're not going to get the answer here. You've got to turn these percentages into like their decimal equivalency. Like 10% is really 0.10, right? And 70% is really 0.7. 20% is really 0.20, right? But that's the only variation in this. But it's very, very similar to the one. Now, so that's the mean. And then I found some questions that I call a little meaner. It's still taking the mean, but they're a little bit meaner of a question to do. Now, remember, on the ACT, every single question is worth the same amount of points, whether it's a really easy one or a really tough one. You just want to get as many of those as you can. And notice, this is number 35, so it's in about the same place of the exam as the other ones. But if you read it, you know, the average weight of 10 boys is 77 pounds. If the youngest boy is excluded, the average weight of the 9 remaining boys is 78 pounds. What's the weight in pounds of the youngest boy? Well, there are a couple things that we could do here. First off, if we look at this, the average rate of 10 boys is 77, right? Now, the youngest boy gets off the scale, and notice that the average goes up. Let me stop. Let me just back up. Okay, let's look at this. We're told one thing here. The average weight of the 9 remaining boys is 78. So if I'm thinking about averages, I could take my youngest boy, right, the youngest, plus, since they call it the 9 remaining boys, I'm going to just say the rest of them. If I take all of their weights, right, and there's 10 of them, we're told that the average is 77. That's what we're told. The average of all of these 10 boys, the youngest plus the rest of them, is 77. Now, we are told the weight of the 9 remaining boys is 78. So if I were to take the rest of them, right? So not counting the youngest kid, but the rest of them, and I divide it by 9 because there's 9 boys remaining, right? We're told that's 78. Now that means that the rest of the boys have got to weigh a total of 702, right? All of them together would make 702. Well, I can take that number and plug it back in. So we now have the youngest plus how much did all the rest of the boys weigh? 702 divided by 10 is 77. Well, we'll multiply both sides by 10, and we've got the youngest plus 702 equals 770. Subtract 702 from both sides, and we get an answer of 68. So this one's a little meaner. It's an average question, right? It's a mean question. But man, there's a couple steps to this, right? Now, I've got 4 ones like this. Let's look at some others, okay? Um, let's look at this one, number 34. To increase the mean of 4 numbers by 3, how much would the sum of the 4 numbers have to increase? Okay, so I want to give you a really good math ACT technique. And the technique is called pick numbers. I'm going to pick 4 numbers. And the numbers I chose are this. You could have picked any 4 numbers you want. Set 3 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4. It says to increase the mean of 4 numbers. Well, let's find the mean of these numbers. If I add these numbers up that I just picked out of the air, I just picked any 4 numbers I wanted, I divide by 4, and the answer is 5. Now, the thing is, I want the mean to increase by 3. So I want to make the mean be equal to 8, right? I want it to be 3 bigger, right? And it says, how much would the sum of the 4 numbers have to increase? Well, our 4 numbers that I chose were 3 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4 plus, I'm not sure how much I've got to add, right? So the old mean was 5, right? Adding them up, and I just picked these numbers out of the air. Well, I want to go ahead and add something to this. Well, if I do my math here, and what I could do is I could do a couple things. I could guess and check these numbers and plug them in. I could add these up, right? So I could do 3 plus 7 is 10, 6 plus 4 is 10, 10 and 10 is 20. So I could say 20 plus my question mark equals, probably going to multiply both sides by 4, right? To get rid of that dividing by 4. So equals 32. Well, what do you have to add the 20 to get 32? 12. Now, in math class, we don't like doing it this way, but ACT, guess what? This is the way they want you to do it. The people that score really high on the ACT test, they see the math like totally differently than we're used to seeing. So picking numbers is really a great way to get your way around some of this. Now we're going to use a modified strategy of this on number 27, okay? So go ahead.
Just one quick question.
All right, make it quick, Alex.
Yeah, how did you pick the numbers?
Well, here's the deal. I just picked 4 numbers. You could have done any 4 numbers all. Like to show it, let's say you picked, let me get a piece of paper here. Alex, give me 4 numbers.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Because we have to say, we want the mean to increase by 3, right? If I add these up and divide by 4, so I have 7, 8, 9, 10. So this equals 10 divided by 4, which in a calculator would be 2.5, right? Now, I want this number to increase by 3, right? So I would say 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus, I have no idea, but I want the answer to be 3 more than this. So I want this to equal 5.5. Well, if I add the numbers up you told me, right? That's, I think, 7. That's going to be 10, right? So 10 plus
2.5 is 5.
I'm sorry?
2.5 is 5, not 5.5.
Oh, 2.5. But see here, remember the thing is, I want to increase the mean of 4 numbers by 3.
By 3.
Yeah. So here's what's tough on the math, Alex. And for me, I'm a math guy. I'm not a very good English person. The reading on this that you have to pay attention to is so, like, you really got to pay attention to how it's worded, you know? It's so easy to miss something. And so that helps us. And if we solve this out, you know, multiply this by 4, let's see, multiply that by 2 would be, let's see, 10, 11, that would equal 22. Oh, sure enough, the question mark is still going to be 12. So, you know, any 4 number.
10 over 4 equals 2.5, and you got 2.5, but then you multiplied by 3 to get 5.
No, I added 3 because
added.
See, to increase, remember increasing, that means making larger, right?
Right, the
I want
sum.
the mean increase. And so see how dense this is? To increase the mean of 4. there's a lot of information in that little introductory clause up to the comma. There's a lot of stuff there. Let me show you a slightly different technique. Number 18, it's kind of similar to that, but not bad. Here, this tells us the mean of a list of 7 numbers at 85. They're telling us 6 of the numbers. What's the 7th number? No big deal. Remember, to find the mean, you add them up, right? So 82 plus 93 plus 68 plus 93 plus the 70. Let's see, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the 98, right? Those are the numbers they're telling us. Plus, I don't know the other number, do I? I have no idea. But again, they're telling us the mean is 85. So if I divide those 7 numbers by 7, I know the mean's got to be 85. So there's a couple ways to do this. Since we're provided answers, we could start plugging in numbers, right, to see what we get. We could do algebra, right? Like I could multiply both sides by 7 and say 85 times 7 is 595, right? And then if I add up all these numbers, and again, Alex, use your calculator, right? You get to use it on all these questions. 93 and a 70. That adds up to, I think, 406, I think. And so that means the question marks got to be letter J. So this is like a guess, right? We're not sure what that is. And this kind of question.
How'd you get 406 again?
Oh, well, these numbers, I added them up. 82. Here, I just use my calculator and just added up the numbers in the top. That's what I did. I think
you should have got
wait, I missed
504.
one. Doggone it. Ugh. 82 plus, yeah, I missed adding a 98, didn't I? Should be
Yeah, it's 504.
Doggone it. Well, I'm glad someone can do this stuff, because clearly this guy is having trouble. But you know what? It's still the answer is 91. So 2 wrongs did make a right. Kind of nice. All right. We are
Yeah,
not.
so the question mark can just be substituted, is the X.
Yeah, I kind of like using that instead of an X sometimes because it just makes my brain think a little differently. But if you want to use an X, by all means.
Well, I was having trouble at first because I didn't understand, but now that the question mark is X, if it was an X, it would have immediately translated in line.
All right, we definitely use an X. Okay, now here's the next bit of stats, the median, right? Now remember, the median is the middle number, but you've got to make sure the terms are in order, right? So we need to put these numbers in order. And what I do is, as I write them in order, I kind of cross them off as I go. That way I don't miss anything because, man, that's so easy to do on this thing. 6 is the next number.
Did it. I did it.
Good. Well, let me catch up, okay? Hang on. It's not a contest yet. Though it could be. Now, the middle number here is the 6, right? No big deal. And you're like, median, Mr. Flynn, how hard could this be? All right, I'm going to give you all 1 minute and figure out this question. It's number 44. So you know it's like in the last 20 questions. So you know it's going to be a little interesting. So silently working, no questions. Let's have some silence for 20 minutes. Okay, about 30 more seconds here. So this one's a bit of a deep thinking kind of question, but you got to look at this and say, okay, there's 11 responses and they want to know the median. So if I were to put 11 numbers in order, I think the sixth number would be the median, don't you? The sixth number in the list if they're in order. I could put 5 on one side, 5 on the other. The middle number would be in the middle. This makes 11. So the sixth response, right? Well, wouldn't that be letter J? 61 to 70? And what makes this question difficult for people is we don't present it like ever in math class. And so ACT tries to present like new types of questions to you. Like here, they're giving you numbers, but they're not giving you the exact numbers like you see in math class all the time. You know, if you have the exact numbers, yeah, I could do the median. But when they don't, you know, little interesting. Okay, let's look at some other variations on this median question, okay? So top of the next page here, let's look at number 45. What is the product of the mean and the median of the first 6 prime numbers? And you're like, oh my gosh, they're combining a lot of ideas. So this is really middle school math, right? Prime numbers, mean, median, but putting them all together, they don't do that in middle school. So ACT is like, we're going to put together a lot of those 8th grade ideas into one question. So the first thing we should do is write out the prime numbers. And they're really nice to say, by the way, 2 is the first prime number.
2, 3, 5, 7, 11.
Yep. Hang on, Alex. We want to give people a chance to think here. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Yeah, prime number is a number that's only divisible by 1 and itself. Now, when
one can't be a prime number because the way you get it is multiplying it by it.
So. And as they say here, right, 2 is the first prime number. So they kind of want to make sure no one's going to make that mistake. Mm-hmm. So the median, first off, the median's going to be, there's actually 2 numbers in the middle, right? 5 and 7. So what's between a 5 and a 7? 6. So the median is a 6. Now, to get the mean, I use my calculator and I added these numbers up and divided by 6, okay? And I'm just going to tell you what the mean is. I've already calculated it, and it's 6.83. Now, the product is when you multiply those, right? And when you multiply those, I get letter D, 41. Kind of cool. All right, so this is kind of an interesting question. You know, it's a math question that we don't usually ask in class. But the product of 2 numbers, you know, and you had to know what the prime numbers were, and they're making you use your calculator to kind of figure it out. Okay, I want to look at one more of these and move on to another topic to talk about here, and it's number 52, and it's by far one of my favorite questions in here. It's got so much of the statistics combined. The mean of 5 integers is 52. The median is 82. 3 of the numbers are 0, 12, and 82. Which of the following could be one of the other integers? Doesn't have to be, but it could be. Now, we're told we have 5 integers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 5 blanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 numbers, right? Now they're telling us 3 of the numbers, right? I'm going to put 0 here, 12 here, 82 here. I feel pretty confident having the 82 in the middle because they're telling us the median is 82, right? Now, I'm not sure what these other 2 numbers are. They want to know which of them, what could it be? Well, I'm going to call this number A, and I'm going to call this number B. I'm not sure what they are. Well, we're told that the mean is 52, right? So I'm going to add those numbers up, 0 plus 12 plus 82 plus A plus B. So there I've added them all up, and I have to divide by 5 because that's how to find the mean, right? And we're told the answer is 52. Well, If I add these numbers up here in the top, right, I get 94 plus the A plus the B, right? And if I multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of this dividing by 5, we wind up with 260. And if I subtract 94 from both sides, I know that A plus B is equal to 166. Now, we still got to figure out what one of the other numbers could be. Now, here's a couple things. We know that A and B both have to be bigger than 82, right? So that means I could eliminate F and G. And one of the mantras on this test should always be glance at the answers and eliminate answers that don't make any sense. The F and the G, they're not bigger than 82, so I can eliminate those. So now I'm going to look at some numbers here. I'm going to say, well, it says, which of the following could be one of the other integers? So let's try 84, because they're telling us these numbers. Let's try one. If I say one number is 84, wouldn't the other number have to be 82 to give us 166? So could an 82 be the A and an 84 be the B? I think that would make this work out okay. So I'm thinking, you know what? I'm thinking the answer is H, but I want to make sure you see that, you know what? It can't be the other ones, all right? If this was actually the ACT, as soon as you get the right answer, circle it, move on to the next question, save some time. And if you want to have some time to kind of go back to questions, make a little dot to go back and check that question. But if you've got an answer, don't bother checking the others. And I know, like in my classes, like for AP Calculus, I notice a lot of times on multiple choice, it's a gender biased question. Like, guys, you're used to engaging in risky behaviors. I've seen some of you guys drive, okay? Girls, you're always really careful. You want to make sure everything's safe. So in a broad stroke, guys, when they see the right answer, they mark it and move on. Girls, on the other hand, they see the right answer, they check the other ones to make sure they don't work. Now, that's a general statement. It's not always true. But if you think about it, it's kind of, I've never seen a guy check all the answers. They're always like, oh, I got it. Let's move on. Girls, you like to check a little bit. My daughter does that. She likes checking all the answers to make sure she's got the right one.
But I like checking.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. See, like I said, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's just a general statement. And that's why, like the AP exams, for example, only went to 4 choices because they found out having an extra choice there was penalizing girls more than guys. All right. What if I thought the other number had to be an 86? Well, if one number is an 86, the other one would,
yes, ma'am.
Gosh, what would it have to be? 86 is one number. 86 plus what is 166? Is that 80? Yeah. So if one number is an 86, well, that means the other number has to be 80. I don't think A could be an 80. It's got to be bigger than or equal to 82. So we're able to eliminate those other choices there. Okay. Hold on. Let's do that. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So that's this one. And I thought that was kind of an interesting kind of question there. There's also another pretty interesting one, and that's this last one that we're going to do together here on this. It's number 51, okay? Now, it's the same idea as 52, but there's a little twist on it. It says you've got a list of numbers, and it has a median of 25. We're finally seeing something that says mode. The mode is 15. So mode happens the most, right? So if I look at my list of numbers, I only see 15 occurring once. Well, that must mean one of these, either the X or the Y is a 15. I'm going to make the Y be 15, so it really doesn't matter. Now, I'm going to put these numbers in order. We've got a 15, a 15. Now, I'm going to put the X here, and you're going to see why in a second. 30 there, 35 there, 41 there. Because see, the median's got to be the middle 2 numbers, right? I know that the X has to go here because we're told that the median is 25. If I put the X anywhere else, I would not be able to get a number that would be 25 in between. Like if I put x to the right of the 30, it wouldn't work out because it'd be between 30 and it wouldn't work out. So I know that the median of these two numbers has got to be 25. So I'm going to say x plus 30 divided by 2 has got to be 25. So that means that x equals 20, right? Now be careful. ACT loves to do these halfway answers. Do you all see the 20 there? It's not the answer. The question says, what's the mean of the list? So a lot of times we get really excited that we got an answer. We see it in there. Be careful, right? So now I got to find the mean of the list, which means add up all the numbers. And divide by 6. And when we do that, we get letter C, which is 26. So this one kind of, the median and mean and median and mode, they're not too bad at concepts, but boy, they could get a little confusing there. Okay, I need you to turn a few more pages backwards and get to page 20, okay? So at the bottom are page numbers, and we're going to do some Pythagorean theorem, okay? This is on page 20 at the bottom there. Now, I know you've been doing Pythagorean theorem since 8th grade. It only works in a right triangle, and it says a squared plus b squared has got to equal c squared. And that's right. That's perfect. It works every time. But ACT rewards you if you know some shortcuts. And I want to give you some shortcuts here in the blank. They're called triples. If I gave you a right triangle, one side was 3, the other side was 4, and the hypotenuse was 5, it would work. In other words, 3 squared plus 4 squared does equal 5 squared, right? Because this would be 9 plus 16 equals 25. So let's say you had a question where you're given two sides of a right triangle and you had to figure out the third one. Yes, you could do this. But if one side is 3, the other side is 4, you automatically know the other side is 5 without having to do any work at all. Now, 3, 4, 5 is a triple. I'm not going to write down this next one, but it would be like 30, 40, and 50, right? I can multiply them all by 10. Or I could say the triple is 6, 8, 10, times them all by 2. There are some other triples like this, and one of them is 8, 15, 17. There's actually an infinite amount, but I just want to give you the ones that the ACT really uses a lot. 8, and then this one. And we're going to go through a bunch of ACT questions, and you're going to notice that of all the triples, they really like the 3, 4, 5. Okay? So keep this in mind as we go through. So here's our first question, 31. It's halfway into the test. We're starting to get a little interesting. It wants to know what's the hypotenuse. Well, the hypotenuse is here, right? Well, let's write down the side lengths. Like, how tall is this? 30. How long is this? Don't say negative 40. We're talking about length, right? So this would be 40. Hey, this is that triple. This is that 3, 4, 5 triple. But it's really 30, 40, 50. Now, that's really fast, and it's a lot faster than working out the Pythagorean theorem question, but it works every time, okay? Let's look at the next one next to it, number 8. This one, you want to draw a picture. It says the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle. So I'm going to draw a right triangle here. The length of the hypotenuse is 50. So this side is 50. One of the legs. Now, these two sides are called legs, so it just says one of them. I'll say this one is 40. What's the length in inches of the other leg? So how long is this side? Do you see how it's that same triple? 3, 4, 5? It's 30, 40, 50. This side is 30. And ACT really wants you to use these triples. I think in geometry, like I taught geometry years ago, we used to do it a lot. And then I taught it about 8 years ago, and they do triples a lot less than they used to. Let's go ahead and look at the one below that, number 40. do they say anywhere in here it's a right triangle? They don't. So when I think about my triangle here, I'm just going to draw a generic triangle and say it's triangle DEF. So I'm going to say this is D, and this is E, and this is F. But I don't know if it's a right triangle or not. And they tell us that DE is 60, square root of 60, and EF is 6. How long is this side? Well, someone might want to try to do Pythagorean theorem on this, but we can only do it if it's a right triangle. And so this is like, I think we saw one yesterday where it was like none of the above. This is the other one that's like that. I've only seen this answer occur twice, and you've seen both of them. Okay. Let's do a couple more of these, and we're going to do some timing. Let's look at number 24. This one's probably one of my favorite questions for the ACT. They got a thing called a midpoint, right? So letter D, that's a midpoint. These two sides are equal. And they want to figure out, how long is this? Well, if you look carefully, you're going to see a really large triangle. And it is a triple. This side here's X. I could say, if I were to look at a 3, 4, 5 triple, times them all by 2 would be 6, 8, 10. Do you see the 10 and the 8? So this side here, it must be 6. And if that's the midpoint, then these two sides must be 3. Now, we've got a little triangle at the bottom here. And so I'm just going to do Pythagorean theorem on this one. There's no triple with a 3 and an 8 on it. So I'm going to have to go 3 squared plus 8 squared equals x squared. And I know it doesn't work because see how all these are really bizarre answers here? So this is 9 and 64. Add those up and I get 73. So I take the square root of both sides and I get letter G. Okay. I really want to get some timing on you. So if you guys could, really, look, we started at 7:10. Mr. Williams finished that, so that would be 8:30. Oh, we've got some time. Okay. So in your ACT booklets, let's go to the same test that Mr. Williams was doing with you. Go to the math section, right? And to make sure we're on the correct one, the very first question on the math section is this one. It's page 14 at the bottom, but there's a lot of page 14s in this booklet, right? Because there's 4 different tests. So go ahead and find this one. Oh, there we go. All right, let me do a couple things here. Okay. So make sure you guys can find page 14 on the math section. I want to give you all 15 minutes to do the first 20 questions. Now, again, that's a little bit faster than we're used to going, like a minute a question. However, those 5 minutes will help us save some time. Now, again, just like I said before, you always want to glance at the answer. So my tip on these, like on this one here, number 1, doesn't the absolute value always make an answer positive no matter what? So you should automatically, eliminate A and B because those are not positive answers, okay? All right, so we're doing 1 through 20. I'm gonna set my timer for 15 minutes. And
Mr. Flynn, really quick.
All right, hold on. Go ahead, Alex.
I'm sorry, but on 51, after we got 156.
On 50?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Let me see which that was.
Stats combined.
Okay. Was this the 51 you're talking about, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your question now?
6. Oh, by the total number. Never mind.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go 15 minutes, the first 20 questions, right? This is the first question. You may begin.